right, I'm going to get started. Hey, if you're facing Molly and talking to her, you need to have a mask on. Okay? If you're facing someone, you need to have your mask on. You can only have your mask off when you're facing that way. Okay? Hello, we're reading Hound Dog True. Chapter 26. Remember, Maddie thinks she's moving, but is she? We don't know. Maddie, Mama says. She is at the door of Maddie's bedroom, the bedroom, marching and already talking. We are not moving. I promise Potluck. When he's better, Maddie says what she knows Mama's about to tell her. When he's better after surgery, then we'll move. Not that either. I promised. Your uncle made me promise we'd stick around at least until you're in high school. He said it is hard on you all. It is hard on you, all the moving. Mama sits on the bed. Maddie, each time we moved, it was for a reason. I could see things were going to get harder. Jobs that were going to go south, their bosses that it just seemed best to move on, you know? That's for the both of us. But Potluck didn't think it was best for you. He said you were pretending everything is okay for my sake. That I was pretending I didn't know you were pretending. Uncle Potluck said that? Yes, says Mama, and I so did not want to believe he was right. That's why I got you the diary. Diary? What did her notebook have to do with moving? I figured you'd write in it and say you were fine and prove me right. Not write in it and prove me right. Or write in it and prove Potluck right. I guess I wouldn't tell him so. Thing is, you wrote in it, but it didn't prove anything. You just wrote janitor stuff and that button story. It didn't prove. Mama goes on talking, but Maddie doesn't hear. She is stuck hearing that button story. Feels like 20 days pass, or 4 seconds, or both. Maddie hears that button story before she figures why that matters. Mama might know about custodial wisdom from Uncle Potluck, but to know about Mo. You read my notebook, Maddie says? Yes, Mama says, and I'm sorry. That's why I put the canned phone thing. I wanted to apologize. From upstairs? I didn't want to see your expression when I told you, I guess. Maybe I was just trying to pretend. Mama looked like she wanted to stand up and leave, but instead she stayed sitting. Turns her head so she can look Maddie in the eyes. And now I have to apologize for all the moving too. I'm sorry, Maddie. I'm sorry I was selfish. I'm sorry I made things hard on you. I'm sorry I made you think we were moving. We are not moving. Maddie cannot help but ask, what about when the going gets tough? The tough are going to have to stick around and face things. Mama pats Maddie's hand, then holds it, her fingers still and warm. Is there anything else you want to ask? Maddie shakes her head, then stops. When did you read my notebook? When? Mama seemed surprised. Yesterday morning, after you and Potluck went to work. Was it under my pillow? Yes, I searched around for it. I found it under your pillow. If Mama read Maddie's notebook, that meant Quincy Sweet didn't. I'm sorry, Mama says again. It's okay, Maddie says. Quincy Sweet hadn't read her notebook, and Mama had, and now Mama knows. She knows, Maddie thinks, but she does not feel any panicking feeling. Mama knows about Maddie's writing, about Mo, about Maddie worrying about things, and she said they were going to stay. Together, they would be staying. At least I know how to caulk a window now, Mama says. You're very detailed about it. I actually learned a lot from your writing. Who knew it took 300 sheets of paper to fill a towel dispenser? Uncle Potluck knew, says Maddie. Yes, Mama said slowly. Yes, he did. Mama picks up the tomato can. I can get some scissors and take this thing down, and I'll figure a way to cover up the hole too so you could have some privacy. Could we leave it up, Maddie asked? Maybe we could use it again sometime to talk about something else, or maybe just say hello. Mama smiles like it is the best plan she's heard in a long time. Done, she said. Chapter 27. They would be staying for a long time, too. Maddie flops back on her pillow, feels the edge of her notebook underneath. Her custodial wisdom notes would be useless now. Uncle Potluck would not be at school when Maddie started next week. She would not be spending her lunches and recess as his apprentice. She does not need the notebook anymore. What she needs is a friend. Maddie sits up. If Quincy Sweets did not sneak read Maddie's notebook, then she has not been faking. Maybe it's even like Mama thinks. Maybe Quincy is a friend, or the beginning of one, anyways. Which means all Maddie has to do is not mess anything up. Not say anything stupid or baby for one more day, and then Quincy will go home to Nicolette and Dewey and her hernia brother, and Maddie can say that she has a friend, and it wouldn't be a lie. She might be alone at Mitchell P. Anderson Elementary in the cafeteria or on the playground, but she could say to herself that she has a friend somewhere. could do that all the way up till Halloween when Quincy is supposed to visit Crystal. Then Maddie'd have to not mess up all over again. Could but that she could think about later. Right now, what she has to think about is how to get out of talking to the moon in front of Quincy. Maddie listens for kitchen sounds. Here's Mama laughing with Uncle Tommy. She can hear Uncle Potluck too, sounding the same as if he never did go to the hospital. Here's Miss Sweet's glass shatter laugh. I know, she says, I know. Probably Quincy is in the kitchen too, though Maddie doesn't hear any plunking. She should go out there. She'd walk right in and say hello and smile a friend smile to Quincy, except maybe she'd look too stupid or eager. It is just dark enough outside for Maddie to see her reflection in the window. She tries smiling at it. Big smiles, little smiles, stretched tight smiles like Quincy wears. Maybe she looks worried, that last one. Maddie shifts her gaze past the window glass to the sky. The moon sits silent by the treetops like a schoolyard kid hoping someone will ask her to play. Evan, you're distracting me. Can you please shut your camera off? Because you're probably distracting someone else. I'm sorry, Maddie whispers. More laughter from the kitchen. Wait a minute, Potluck. That's not how it goes. Listen, that was Uncle Tommy. He'd tell whatever story Uncle Potluck had just finished. Tell it his way. It would be funny, too. Maybe even funnier than Uncle Potluck. The two of them could go on like that all night. Which gives Maddie an idea, a very good idea. All she needs to do is ask Uncle Potluck about his childhood days or get Uncle Tommy talking about fishing trips or old girlfriends. And just like that, the kitchen would be filled up with stories, each one tugging at the clock hands until it is too late that Maddie and Quincy would be half asleep in their chairs. No time left for anything but getting in their sleeping bags and saying good night. She could manage good night without messing up. For a second, Maddie sees her reflection again. That stretched tight smile is still there, flashing worry back at her. It'll be okay, she tells her window face. I'm sorry, she tells the moon again. Listens then, just in case the moon wants to say she understands, but the moon stays mum, or quiet. It sits on the edge of the clouds and waits. Chapter 28. Will she talk to the moon? I don't know. Out in the kitchen, Uncle Potluck is sitting on one chair, his traitorous knee pillowed up on another. Miss Sweet and Uncle Tommy are at the table, too. Mama stands by the stove, a wooden spoon in her hand. Quincy is not there. Plant yourself here by me, won't you, Maddie May? Uncle Potluck says, pulling a chair close up by his side. He has to lean to grab it, and leaning makes him hoot. I'm sorry, she says, so quiet only Uncle Potluck hears. You have apologized enough, Maddie May. Uncle Potluck says, quiet back, it's okay. But it's not okay. It's in my notebook. Unplug cords as soon as you're done using them. It's my fault you tripped. Uncle Potluck adds, thinking. Will you add something else to your notebook for me, he asks. Add this. If you're going to practice your foxtrot while on the job, first examine the area for potential hazards. Maddie May, if I had not been so involved in my singing and dancing extravaganza, I would have seen the vacuum cord right off. I believe we share the blame for this one. Miss Sweet has been listening, butts in. You were dancing? A little, Uncle Potluck says. There are people who inspire dancing in me. It cannot be helped. He leans, then kisses Maddie on top of her head. Drops his hat over the kiss spot. It feels good, like having a Band-Aid on a paper cut. Look, Miss Sweet says to Mama. She has pulled out her cell phone. On the little screen is a picture of Miss Sweet in her cotton candy dress. Next to her is a lady in a purple dress. The lady has on even more makeup than Miss Sweet does, and her hair is all tornadoed up exactly to match. Doesn't Quincy look fabulous? The lady is Quincy. Yesterday, I was telling her all about the prom and decided we'd get dressed up in my old gowns and go out on the town. Miss Sweet looks through her eyelashes at Uncle Potluck. The waiter said we looked like sisters. He's the one who took the picture. Maddie looks at the picture again. Miss Sweet is grinning. Quincy is not. She looks matter of fact, or maybe bored or embarrassed. Makes sense she didn't want Maddie coming along, or even anyone to see her. I did her up yesterday. I did her up again today. You'll see when she comes over. I don't know what's taking her so long. Uncle Potluck whispers to Maddie, would you retrieve our wayward guest? I'm hungry, and your mother refuses to dish out even a spoonful of stew until all are present and accommodated for. Maddie nods, and Uncle Potluck's hat tips over her eyes, but she pushes it back. Goes to get Quincy, except Quincy doesn't really need getting because just as Maddie reaches for the rental house, the door opens and Quincy steps out. Her face is red, Maddie notices, and not made up. Made up means like all full of makeup. I figured out what I'm going to tell the moon, Quincy says. Have you? Yes, Maddie says. It is not a lie. In the kitchen, Uncle Potluck is telling another story. Unleashed, he says, as Maddie and Quincy come in. It's the end of the Stella story and part where Stella takes off and Uncle Potluck is left alone in the rain. Miss Sweet pouts when she sees Quincy. You washed off the makeup. It felt fake. Miss Sweet matches her pout with the arms crossed. You get used to it. To continue, Uncle Potluck says, to continue. There is more to the Stella story. I must have passed out because the next thing I know is that night there's a terrible crash down about 20 yards away. I was certain it was a bear. And you with no birthday cake, says Uncle Tommy. Uncle Potluck throws a hush look at Uncle Tom. Uncle Potluck throws a hush up look to Uncle Tommy, goes on with his story. There I was, hurt and defenseless. I reached for a stout branch, though I knew I could not fight off a bear in my pitiful condition. Closer, the sound came. Closer. Maddie feels herself lean forward, sees Mama do the same. When out of the woods charges that goofball dog, galloping full speed, jumping right into my lap, howling like one of Tommy's fire trucks. Mama laughs and Tommy laughs and even Quincy laughs. A couple seconds later, two of my fellow MPs struggled through the bushes. Stella had led them straight to me. Lazy dog, Miss Sweet says. She tricked you. She knew how to track all along. Maybe she wasn't lazy. Maybe she just didn't. Maybe people just don't understand her, Quincy says. Maddie thinks about that. About tricks and understanding. Thinks too about how maybe even Stella didn't know what she could do. How maybe she didn't know the truth until she had to. Hound dog true, Maddie says quietly. Uncle Potluck smiles, takes his hat from Maddie's head, and drops it back on his own. All right, chapter 29. Maddie is halfway through eating her supper when she hears a rumbling sound. A shiny black car rumbles up the gravel drive, parks next to Crystal Sweet's orange one. Who's that? Miss Sweet asks. Uncle Potluck sets his corn cob down, leans far around Miss Sweet to see out the kitchen window. As soon as he shoots back into sitting straight. It is Principal Bonnet. Mama taps Maddie to get the door. Principal Bonnet has regular shoes on and regular jeans. She is not dressed like a principal or a mountain climber, just a regular person. Hello, Maddie. I wanted to check on your uncle. May I come in? Maddie lets Principal Bonnet in. It is weird having a principal in your house, even a regular-looking one. Everybody at the table sits taller, Maddie notices. Uncle Potluck, everyone. Hello, Mama says. Hello, Principal Bonnet says. Then she turns to Uncle Potluck. Sure, she says, and she salutes. Before Maddie has time to ponder, the spirit in which she salutes is met. Uncle Potluck laughs a big laugh, one that shakes his shoulders and his belly and even his knees, so he has to put a hand on it to keep it from hurting. You know about that, he asks. Of course I know, Robert. I am principal. I see all. Miss Sweet humps, unimpressed. Potluck can see the future in an ear of corn. Uncle Tommy slaps the table. Caught, he laughs. Let's see you hound dog chew your way out of this one. For a second, Uncle Potluck is silent, nervous, Maddie thinks. Can't think of anything to say with Principal Bonnet right here in the kitchen. But then he does say something, clears his throat and tilts his head and says, Tommy, your lack of faith is a sorry disappointment. Sylvia, would you do me the honor of allowing me to examine your cob? Mama pushes her plate to Uncle Potluck. Uncle Tommy waves Principal Bonnet to an empty chair. Sit, he says. This might take a while. Uncle Potluck looks around the table. Though Maddie notices, he skips looking at Principal Bonnet, just looks at everyone else, then the cob on the plate. He says, lifting Mama's cob with a fork. Before I begin, it is important that everyone present understand that these readings are merely snapshots rather than complete prognostications. The cob tells us about this moment, offering a keen and discerning reader clues about the future. Get on with it, Tommy says. Potluck holds the corn high, studies it up and down and around. I see, he says, very interesting. And well, now how about that? And finally, and there you go. Where did I go? Mama asks. Uncle Potluck rises his knife, points and at the base of the cob, see how these large bottom kernels are nibbled off? That indicates a person who is taking root. While these up here, he points to the tip of the ear where the tiny kernels are bit off willy-nilly. Show hope. Maddie steals a look at Quincy. She looks bored, Maddie thinks. Everyone else is leaning in, listening, especially Mama. Yes, indeed, says Uncle Potluck. This is a sign of good fortune. You have to watch the thing, Nolan, which hasn't been posted yet because I haven't gotten around to posting it yet because instead I'm reading this book. Yes, indeed, says Uncle Potluck. This is a sign of good fortune. The beginning of a new and satisfying adventure for anyone willing to stand firm and face it. Uncle Potluck sets the corn down on the plate. Everyone claps, including Principal Bonnet. Uncle Potluck's ears red up. Thank you, Potluck, Mama says. Uncle Potluck shrugs. Thank the corn. Uncle Tommy pushes his plate across the table. There are 3 cobs on it, picked clean, not a kernel in sight. Where am I beginning? He says. Indigestion, Uncle Potluck says. The corn predicts Alka-Seltzer. Who's next? Me, Maddie thinks pick me. Tell me what kind of person I am. Tell me what I'm beginning. She thinks it tight and loud inside her head. Me, knowing Uncle Potluck will hear it, but he does not. What he hears, what Maddie hears, what everyone hears is matter-of-fact Quincy plunking me. Quincy nudges her plate towards Uncle Potluck, but before he can touch it, Miss Sweet snaps up Quincy's cob. Let me, she's my niece after all. She holds Quincy's corn up like Uncle Potluck did, saying, and aha. Like he did. Okay, Miss Sweet says. Okay, I have it. Okay. So all these rows are totally straight. See, that C says Quincy's future is all mapped out perfectly. Quincy's going to be super popular and she'll have lots of awesome boyfriends. And next thing you know, she'll be prom queen like I was. Miss Sweet seems a little bit superficial to me. This is the best fortune Miss Sweet can think of, Maddie can tell. She's trying to be nice, but Quincy just watches her dinner plate. It doesn't move, the dinner plate. Neither does Quincy. Miss Sweet turns to Mama. You can just tell she's going to have a lovely figure. Maddie crosses her arms over her chest and sees Quincy do the same. Miss Sweet doesn't see. She turned to look on Uncle Potluck. I was totally flat until I was 14, she says. But girls today mature so much faster. I read it in People. They call them tweens now, too. Then Miss Sweet starts talking about how tweens wear lip gloss and tweens do texting and how all the tweens want to do is be grown up and they think about boys. Maddie watches Quincy's face, knowing that all she's thinking about is stabbing her aunt with a fork. That's true. That's all true, Miss Sweet says. There have been studies. Nobody studied me, says Quincy. It doesn't sound a bit plunky either. Miss Sweet starts to say something else, but then Quincy grabs the corn cob, chomps 3 big bites. There. Study that, Quincy says, and before her cob hits the plate, the porch door is slamming shut, and Quincy is stomping through the garden dusk. They're prone to drama, too, says Miss Sweet. So Miss Sweet clearly embarrassed Quincy, and that's why she stormed away. For a minute, the room is quiet. Feels like anything could happen. Maddie waits. Waits for Miss Sweet to stand up and go after Quincy or Mama, too, or Uncle Potluck to pick up somebody else's corn cob, maybe even Maddie's cob, and go on with the fortune-telling. Maddie could stay here and listen all about her fortune and never have to go and talk to the moon at all. Except none of those things happen. What happens is Maddie Breen does a small, brave thing. She stands up, everyone looking, and goes outside. Out into the half-dark, past the bean teepees and the tomato cages and the stone rabbit standing lonely guard. Up past the tangled pumpkin vines, past Mama's friend tent. Up she walks, up the rise to the woods, to the rock ledge by the apple tree, up to Uncle Potluck's rock, to Maddie's rock, to the place she knows, even in the half-dark. Quincy Sweet will be there. All right, I think this is our final chapter, chapter 31. Quincy's on the rock, sitting on it, knees up, arms folded over them, toolbox and paper bags at her side. Poor Mo, Maddie says. Maybe it's a dumb thing to say. Maybe she should have let Quincy talk first. But Quincy seconds. Poor Mo, she says, like a secret code. She puts her papers on the grass, Quincy does, drops her toolbox on top of them, making room for Maddie to sit on the rock. Maddie sits, pulls close her own knees. The clouds move around some and the light changes, tinting the sky as dark as Miss Sweet's lipstick, Maddie thinks. Quincy must notice too. I wear lip gloss at school, she says, quiet. I do too. Or I did once, Maddie says. I don't say much about school. I didn't talk at all that morning. By lunch, the gloss had turned to glue. I thought my lips would rip off if I tried to open them. It was a silly thing to say. So silly, Quincy laughs like she's going to roll right off the rock. That kind of laugh Maddie can't help laughing with. It's true, Maddie says, still laughing around and around like screws untwisting. Quincy unfolds her legs, divides her hair for braiding, though she has no bands for the ends, and one braid frees as soon as she moves to the next. A breeze comes, the cloud shifts, a slivering, a breeze comes, a cloud shifts, sliverings a half light over the tree, opening the darkening sky to the moon. I must have heard your lip gloss story, Quincy says. Maybe Miss Moon came out for a lip gloss story, but the lip gloss story is not one that needs telling. Not the one Maddie needs the moon to hear. There's another story, a twist tight story coiled up inside her, and there, with Quincy on the rock beside her, Maddie tells it. It starts out backwards from the way she has told it before, to Mo, to Minnie, to herself. It was so big it starts, so big she thought she'd swallow up. The story goes on that way, bottom turning to the top. The magic word agree, notebook pages soaked dark, stories fist clenching, she, Maddie, and the ogre, how the girl said it, agree. In that sound out way, how the word had been in the story of Maddie's notebook, in her yellow notebook, how the girl had come upon the notebook in Maddie's backpack after looking in all the other backpacks, how she could come in small in the coat room, how her name was Star, how she had come in looking for change. The words loosened, unwind. Maddie feels herself breathe, slow and deep in and out. Poor Mo, says Quincy. That was good. I mean, it was bad, a bad thing that happened, but how you told it was good. No wonder you're a writer, she says. You're good at stories. I am. Maddie thinks it is not a question. It is a statement, a true matter of fact I am, she says. She does not know how loud she says it, does not know if she whispered or shouted, does not know that she hears an echo like the kind in your heart, the kind you hear on a mountaintop, except this echo is not bouncing off mountains or woods or tents or houses. It is not an outside echo at all. It is an inside echo, and Maddie hears it, a big and round and full as the moon. It's darker now. The moon is high above. Quincy looks up and Maddie looks up, both looking up at the brave, round moon. Now what? Whispers Quincy's. You tell your thing, Maddie says, if you want. I did before you got out here. I told about Dewey and Nicolette and Crystal. All that, Quincy plunks. All that. Same stories Maddie already heard. Same plunky things she's already said. It didn't work. It won't work, Maddie wants to tell her. Trusting the moon means saying things that are secret, things that matter. She starts to tell Quincy so, but the moon is lighting Quincy's face. She is looking up, twisting her hair in a wishful braid, which is now how Maddie sees finally, how she knows that the things Quincy has said do matter. That is Quincy's secret. Another light, round and white, bobs off the back porch, through the garden, into the yard, lights up the corner of the friend tent. It stops there, tilts, then shines back up the rise. Maddie, it's Mama up there. Or up here, Maddie says. Mama has a flashlight, a firefighter kind that Uncle Tommy uses. And the white of it is so hard, Maddie has to turn her eyes away to lift them back to the moon. I put the sleeping bags and extra flashlight in the tent. You want to put on your pajamas? Where's Crystal? Asked Quincy. The lights are up on the rental house. Her closet door won't close. Tommy said he'd take a look. I'll sleep in my clothes, Quincy plunks. I don't feel like changing. Maddie, Mama asks. Maddie shakes her head. I'm okay the way I am tonight. Mama stands there, the flashlight pointing at the rock. I better get back, she says. Your principal has a substitute janitor coming tomorrow. She needs potluck to tell her what has to be done before school starts. Maddie shields her eyes to see past Mama, to see the kitchen window, watches Uncle Potluck's shadow fiddle with its hat. He's so shy around her, Mama says. It's cute. Shy? Maddie has been called shy, knows it does not feel cute. My notebook, Maddie says. It's still under your pillow, Mama says. I didn't. Would you give it to Uncle Potluck's? Maddie says. My custodial wisdom notes. He can give them to Principal Bonnet if he wants. Are you sure? Maddie is sure. You want me to walk you down to the tent? Mama asks, lifting the flashlight again. It's pretty dark out here. Quincy shakes her head. We'll find our way, Maddie says. They do find their way, Maddie leading, Quincy following down the rise to the tent, to the sleeping bag. The flashlight Mama left in the tent makes it bright enough for Quincy to draw. She pushes some bag paper to Maddie. I can draw and listen for the moon, she says. Can you listen and write? Probably she can, but for now Maddie just listens to Uncle Tommy's motorcycle growling down the drive, to Miss Sweet leaving for work, Principal Bonnet saying she'll stop by again tomorrow if that's all right. Uncle Potluck says how her visit would be an honor. Listens for the scratch of pastels on grocery bags, to the slow and stop of it, and later to the sweet of Quincy Sweet's quiet snore. Listens for something else too, something she has not listened for in a long time. She listens for a story, one inside her head that she can write down. Marissa, you are making so much noise, ma'am. Please stop that. A brave Mo story, maybe. She could rewrite an old story. She still remembers some from her yellow notebook. A breeze ripples through the tent. flickers the warning labels on the scene. Maddie thinks about the stick man, wonder if he's enjoying the ride. She puts her pencil to the rough of the paper bag. In the morning when she makes, Maddie is surprised by what she finds in the paper bag, what she has written. It is only the beginning of a story, but it is a good beginning, she thinks, the kind that makes you want to know what comes next. All right, that is the end of the story, but we do have a tiny little preface, or like the end of the story that tells you kind of what happens at the end. It's not an actual chapter, so we have 2.5 more pages. Then you are free to take the AR test if you choose to do so. In Miss Morgan's 5th grade class, you do not stand in front of the blackboard to introduce yourself, and it is not just the new kids doing the introducing. It is everyone. You are all new to me, Miss Morgan says. And so they are moving down the rows one by one, each person standing and saying their name. Each person standing and saying something interesting about them. There are 7 desks before Maddie, 7 people introducing themselves. The first 2, Maddie doesn't remember the name of. Her heartbeat whoosh, whoosh, whooshing in her ears, covering everything up. She made her eyes watch their faces, though. The second one, a boy, had smiled at her. Next was another boy. I'm David Byrne, he said. He had a dog, a big one, and had taken it to obedience school all summer, but his dog won't sit on command. Makes Maddie think of Stella. Underneath, she thinks, underneath, maybe that dog knows. Which gets her thinking about underneath of all these kids in her class, the parts they maybe won't share right away, but are as hound dog true as their hair color or the shoe size or anything you can see. Maddie misses the next girl's name thinking that. Tells herself, pay attention. At the same time, thinking that maybe most people aren't going to be paying attention so close when she introduces herself either, which makes the whooshing sound quiet some. Not all, but some. End of the first row. A girl, Nadia Benedict, has a box full of fossils under her bed. Beginning of row 2, Maddie's row. Maddie feels her face reddening, feels her heart thump, 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 thump. Katie Culp. She has a twin brother, Joe, and went to the Grand Canyon over vacation. Next, says Miss Morgan, Maddie wants to look at the next person's face as he stands, but her own face is reddening so much, all she can do is look at her notebook. It's a new notebook, a regular one, blue with a wire spiraling around one edge. Inside, she has written some of the stories she remembered from before, and some new stories too, about the stone rabbit, and even one about Uncle Potluck's hat. Maddie puts her hand on the notebook and makes herself listen to the person at the desk in front of her. I'm Jed Kim, he says. I have 7 chickens. And he says their names, smooth as eggs. Who's next? Miss Morgan asks. Maddie stands, keeps one hand on her notebook. I'm Maddie Breen, she says. Her voice is quiet, but no one says speak up. Everyone can hear. I write stories. Dun, da, da, da. That is the end. I'm going to get off here. This will be posted for anyone that wasn't able to join it. Have a lovely day, peeps. Feel free to take the AR quiz if you want.